Impostor Syndrome by Glomar. 1. Return of the Prodigal Son. Virgil drives home in the rain, dreading his arrival more the closer he gets. The wipers do a shit job of clearing the water, so he has to creep along, squinting through the glass. Everything looks like distorted rivers of light. Claire's call replaying over and over in his memory. How is he? Bad, obviously. But instead of saying that, she'll only say, "He needs you, Virgil," and then, "We need you," unsaid. You haven't been here. You've been off in your own worlds, doing your own thing, while everything at home falls apart. Well, I'm here now. It's a big house. Bigger than they needed when they were growing up together. Now it's positively enormous. At the time, Dad said it was to impress business partners, but Virgil thinks intimidate. It is intimidating. With the kids out and just Mom and Dad rattling around in all those rooms, it looks darker than he remembers it. How long since he's been back? 2 years if you count a brief visit for Christmas dinner. More than 5 if you don't. He searches the curved driveway for any sign of Claire's Honda, but nope, she's not going to be around for this. Mom comes to the door and wraps him in her arms. Warm love, but also relief and desperation. She holds him a moment too long and whispers in his ear, "Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for saving him, for leading him out of the dark place that he's in." Virgil stands awkward. "Don't thank me yet. I don't know if I can." "He's upstairs," Mom says. His office, hollowed ground, off limits unless supervised, even to her. These days, he spends almost all of his time up there, staring into the world on the other side of the computer monitor, engulfed by it. "He knows you're coming," she tells him with an encouraging nod. Go find him, Virgil, and you bring him home, please. We need him. He needs us." Virgil nods and leaves her. He doesn't look back over his shoulder, but he listens. Does she move off, going back to her own thing? No. Silence. No footsteps away. She's watching him, isn't she? He starts to climb, and the nostalgic hit of dread is almost shocking, even after all this time. Really? Knock it off, Virgil. You're a grown man. Virgil knocks at the door and pushes inside. There he is, standing at the window, framed by the evening lights outside, watching the rain. A surge of annoyance of Virgil promised himself he'd rise above. "Really, Dad? Dramatic posing now? You drive a woman's car?" "It's a rental." Dad's eyebrows. "That's even worse. A man should drive his own car or something." Mildly disappointed, yes, but also gratified because Virgil is what he expected. When he speaks, it's straight to the topic at hand. "They called you? Made you drive all the way back from Washington." He's amused at their drama, above it. "Maryland," Virgil says. Dad pronounces Washington with gleeful contempt. "You work in Washington." He's not going to be wrong. Sometimes. Virgil walks in and looks around. Everything's exactly as it always has been. Golf stuff, hunting stuff, shelves and shelves of hardcover books about Roman history and World War II. All the things Dad used to be passionate about are still there, but it's a museum now. What matters now is the screen. "What did they tell you?" Dad laughs, imagining it. "That I've lost my mind? That I'm dangerous?" "You scared Claire," he says. He snorts. "No. I offended her. I disagreed with her. There's a difference." He waves a hand to dismiss him. "I blame myself, of course. I raised a daughter who has a hard time accepting that she doesn't know everything. My fault." "Well, he's not wrong about that." "Mom's worried about you, too." Your mother needs a hobby," he says. 2 down, 1 to go. "So how about you? Are you worried?" "You bought a gun?" They told him. Guns. He's annoyed that his son missed the plural. "And what? That scare you? You were in the goddamn army, Virgil." Disgust. There's a silver lining. "That can't make a man out of you. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't feel so bad about my failure to do so." He makes fierce, challenging eye contact. "Here's a test for you, Virgil. Let's see how you do. Every American should have a gun, especially now, especially with what's going on out there." He gestures to the endless, orderly suburban sprawl beyond the window. It's dark now. The rain blurs, dissolves the landscape. Virgil sits down and his father takes the cue, sitting as well. His executive chair behind his executive desk. Elbows on the dark wood, fingers steepled together. "Your move, Virgil." Okay, I'll bite. What's going on out there? Virgil had some idea. Claire told him a little, although mostly focused on the guns with fewer specifics on the why. Mom had alluded to some parts too, and he'd been busy but not completely disconnected from cable news. He's seen bits here and there, the sensational think pieces about what the nut jobs on the conservative fringes were saying, but honestly, he's not clear what Dad believes. It's okay. Dad absolutely cannot resist a captive audience. He's looking for a fight, of course, but with Mom checked out and Claire spooked into flight, he's starved for someone willing to listen. He knows loose lips sink ships, though, so he doesn't just dive in. You really don't know? Jeering. I thought that you worked for the State Department. That's what we tell people. Maybe I'm not clear for it. Virgil says it so mildly it enrages and draws forth a short, barking, ugly little laugh. Cruel, dismissive. Virgil heard that laugh all of his life, and now, in this room filled with his father, he's surprised at how little it hurts. Virgil, to the computer, the screen. What have you done with him? How did you make him so small? I can't believe that, Dad says. You're more of a doer than a decision-maker, aren't you? More an Indian than a chief? He gets up. For what comes next, he'll need props to manipulate. He walks to the liquor cabinet. A tumbler of Maker's Mark is almost as good at underlying key concepts as a cigarette and a lot more house-friendly. We'll get to the details soon enough, he assures Virgil. But let's start with the basics. Whatever you think, whatever media-generated, incoherent worldview you have to be aware that something is wrong out there. You might not know what. I'm sure wherever you're getting your information, it's very confusing to you. Hell, your sources are probably blaming people like me. Ha! So amusing. But whatever you're seeing at least tells me that you know things are broken. Broken? Is that the right word? Virgil isn't here to find points of agreement, not really. But maybe? Dad turns away to let him think on this as he fishes out his key. Dad to teenage Virgil. If you ever avail yourself to those precious libations, I will take the belt to you. And then he was profoundly disappointed when Virgil never did. Dad would have, if he were the teenager. Young Virgil was unimaginable to him. Alien. Am I still? Dad stares at the shelves, trying to decide. He finds the right bottle and turns around. This isn't the way that we're supposed to live, Virgil. We're not supposed to be desperate all the time, worried, depressed. We're Americans. We're not supposed to be worried about losing our jobs, our families, just for making basic, clear-headed statements about factual reality. Please agree with me, Virgil. On this, if nothing else, please. You might be a disappointment, a failure, but tell me that you can at least see the obvious. When Virgil says nothing, his father goes on. I know that we're not going to agree on causes or what's really behind it or any of that, but let's just say with the country falling apart. With the country falling apart? Where did he hear that recently? Oh, right, Eli. When Virgil and his team returned to the office, Eli sat them down and updated them on the domestic situation. Basically, no one can agree on anything. He meant in Washington, and can't agree was a euphemism. We are doing the best that we can, but it's just hard to set policy, to make arguments, to know who's an ally and who's an enemy. Broken. Counterpoint. Isn't everyone he knows doing fine? Penny, Atticus, Joel, his team, Eli, his new boss. Does he really not know anyone outside of work? What about Claire? She's doing good, isn't she? Married, teaching. Some of his old army buddies seem to be struggling if you follow their Facebooks, but is that new? Getting out was always a bitch. People on the news aren't doing great, but isn't that just people on the news? Interesting and exceptional by their nature, right? Are things really broken? Or do they just feel that way? Mom, are you seeing anyone, Virgil? Well, no, but I've been really busy. He feels his dad watching, surveying his emotions, testing his response. Something's wrong, Virgil. Something's wrong with the country. Maybe the world, with people, with politics, with the environment, with the economy. There's something wrong with the police and with the internet and with our families, with how we sleep at night. Please, tell me you see it, Virgil. Yes, Father, I see it. Virgil finds himself nodding, even as he struggles to explain what exactly he sees. People are angry at each other, worried about the future. Why? About what? He isn't sure he can put his finger on it, but we're not doing so well, Virgil says, but he can see that it's enough. It's what Dad needed. The courage to say the next thing. Here it is, Virgil, the crazy. They're replacing people. He pours Virgil a glass as well and walks back, handing Virgil his. They have this technology, I don't know the details, that allows them to create credible duplicates. He shakes his head, anticipating the obvious incredulous reaction. Not perfect ones, but credible. Credible enough that with a sympathetic, complicit media, they can shift the narrative. Duplicates. Good Lord. But no, not going there yet. Shift the narrative. In a cooperative interrogation, you don't attack weak points directly, you circle. You ask open-ended questions to keep them talking. Don't go for the throat, don't ask the hard stuff. Stick to topics that they'll be happy to answer to build initial rapport. Then you tackle the contentious parts. On the other hand, Dad knows better than to do all of the talking. He ignores the question, backs up. When would you say that the world went to hell? Hard question if you want to answer in good faith. There's certainly no lack of recent fuck-ups and atrocities that Virgil could point to, but aren't all those symptoms of a deeper rot, just the visible effect of the clock of entropy running down? Who failed to wind it? When? I don't know, Virgil admits. It's been on its way for a while. Yes. Dad sits back, armed with his drink, ready to face Virgil across the table again. It probably started as far back as the 70s, he says, ruminating. We didn't notice. In the 90s, 20 years later, we started to get this feeling that things were off track. He shakes his head. Back then, you were just a baby. We thought that it was just Clinton the Shrew. Ha! You know, bad leaders, an apparition. We thought it was something that we could fix with an election or two. He takes a long sip. His eyes vague, looking off into the past, imagining what could have been if they had been willing to act. Rush tried to warn us, you know. He kept asking us, why do all these solid, patriotic Republican politicians get elected and go to Washington and then just languish, do nothing, compromise basic principles over and over and over again? He sits back, his eyes in the present now, focused on his son. Rush thought that it was money, God rest his soul. Laughs. We were dumb. Virgil. Naive. It was probably happening even back then. Replacement? Impostors. There it is, the word I. The news has talked about this. I is the code letter shortened true believers use to identify themselves online. And increasingly, according to news in real life, I stands for the nefarious duplicates, of course, but also the deeper inside whistleblower who is exposing the mad, absurd truth to the online faithful clear-headed enough to understand it. I is building a digital army of the disaffected and unprogrammed, people outside the mainstream who will be ready to step in when the inevitable breakdown occurs and the great sleepwalking zombified masses are shocked into a terrible gnosis that lays bare the complete betrayal their heroes and masters have committed. Virgil feels his father's intensity. Here it is, the truth. React, son. Show me if you've got what it takes. Can you handle the truth, can he? It's just so stupid. No, don't. Say that. Breathe. Open-ended questions. You think that's what's happening? No, son. Father is not going to be placated. Not by you, not by anyone. His disappointment. He expected so little and got even less. You think it's not? How blind can you be? But he checks himself before the floodgates of lava open. CNN hasn't shown you. Dad reminds himself, so of course you don't know. Still, pathetic. It's not subtle, Virgil. These people, they're not aliens or, I don't know, cloning people. Ha! So absurd. The imposters are obvious. The only reason that you don't know, that everyone doesn't know, is because that no one is paying attention, Virgil. Not you, not your mother, not your sister, none of you. And they know that. They know that you don't care. That you'll keep watching whatever, I don't know, Hollywood gossip or... He gestures around the room. Streaming shows or made-up kafabe political drama they want to show you. Your social media, it's all entertainment, and it's so fascinating that they want to remove someone inconvenient, anyone who doesn't get with the programming. They know that you'll just accept it. Accept the new actor in the role. Change the channel. Silence. Dad, studying him, now a little frantic behind his facade of sneering contempt. Please tell me you understand. Nothing. Virgil gives off nothing but mild, engaged curiosity. It's infuriating. But there's also despair because they called us exactly right, Dad says quietly. I want to blame your generation, but it's not just you. It's a lot of ours, too. Virgil sees his shoulders slump. They knew that they'd eat it up. They knew that we'd rather believe a comforting fiction, even if it wasn't plausible, even in the face of disaster, Virgil. They knew that we'd rather believe that everything was fine, even if it wasn't, rather than deal with the truth that our republic was gone a long time ago. He's dully astounded at the failure, the stupidity, the hopelessness of everyone around him. This is not the towering father of his memory and imagination, but a scared, angry man, grown small with age, drowning in isolation. Fuck me. What made you believe it? Virgil asked quietly. Not a challenge, an offering, because wrong offering. Virgil? Vegetables? You should have brought meat. No, Dad says quietly. Belief is what you have when you don't have evidence. I don't believe this, Virgil. What the fuck do you take me for? Anyone with eyes and half a brain can look this stuff up, son. It's not hard. They're not being clever. They have so goddamn little respect for what they're doing. It's right out in the open. His hand has gone to his mouse. Point, click, load, play. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok. Windows open across screens, and again an authoritative voice talks through the video, evidence of the imposters, before and after screenshots with discrepancies in height, ear shape, hairline circled in red to point out the immutable variance. Sonic analysis showing divergent waveforms in voice recordings that can only be explained by radical differences in the physiology of the vocal trachea. Artifacts and PR photos where most egregious mistakes have been cleaned up, but quickly and by clearly a rank amateur. A movie star shrinks 2 inches between February and March. A sports hero used to be based goes woke and then can't hit the 3-pointers anymore. Clearly, he has the height, but not the skill. On, over and over, an endless avalanche of mistakes so clear and obvious you don't even need an advanced degree in digital imaging to see them. Just follow the red magic marker. The litany of gnosis, secret knowledge, movie stars, politicians, CEOs, Agenda 21, gay marriage, open borders, socialism, cannibalism, the transformation of America into an unrecognizable dystopia without God, without stake, without hope. They're scared of us, Father says, of ordinary Americans. We terrify them. We're too uneducated, too poor, too independent, too free. They're scared that we'll breed. They're scared that we'll stand up to them. They need people who will kneel, who are used to kneeling, people from the cultures where that's the norm. Don't look at me like that. I'm not goddamned racist. You know what it's like out there. You've traveled. An hour passes, and then another. It's night, and the rain won't stop coming. Dad keeps searching Virgil's eyes for any sign of light, any sign of understanding, but there's nothing. There's nothing there. It's garbage. It's not even bullshit. It's just so obviously wrong. The pictures show nothing like what the confident voices claim they do. The photographic analysis is so bad that it wouldn't even get thrown out of a serious conversation. It would get laughed out. It's impossible to imagine a professional analyst coming to the table with something even approaching this. But if they did, they'd be fired without ceremony. The term pathetic is overused, but in this case, finally exhausted, surrender. You don't see it, he says. Not a question. He can read it in his son's face. I'm sorry, Virgil says. He is sorry. He came all the way, desperately looking for any bridge to connect them. But Dad was too far away, unreachable. Don't be. Dad sits back. It's my fault, he says quietly. I didn't raise you right. I never really reached you, did I? A boy needs his father, and I tried. I did. I tried my best, but you were always on some other wavelength. He struggled for the words. Your whole generation. We made your feelings more important than facts. We told the girls that they had to be strong. We told the boys it was okay to be weak. We got it backwards. He sinks into the chair. I knew better, but I went along with it. He looks at Virgil. Are you in therapy? He can't think of anything that would make his boy less of a man. Yes, Virgil says. He nods. Yup. Figured.